Are you tired of seeing good kids make bad decisions? Well, let's face it, this is a fact of life. Teenagers are developing, they are figuring themselves out, they're trying to see how they fit in the world. I mean, their brains are not even actually developed, and they're navigating high school. Ultimately, everybody's going to make bad decisions. But what we need to do as education professionals, we need to come in and figure out a way to mitigate the serious ones. Today, I'm going to walk you through a very simple 3-step framework that you can teach your students called the CDP framework. And this is something that I've incorporated into all my programs. Literally stands for the choices that we have, dictate the decisions that we make, and build the patterns of our lives. Because ultimately, everything that we do is up to us and the decisions that we make. So let's start with choices. Really, you have to understand the difference between a choice and a decision, because these two words kind of can be used simultaneously. A choice is something that has yet to occur. It's something in front of us that we have to either do A or do B. A decision has happened in the past. Now, there is some gray area where basically you can decide preemptively and say, that's it. I am no longer going to be overweight. My diet starts today, and I'm never going back. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the choice will still present itself every time that donut is on the table. Same exact situation when a student is faced with whether or not they should get in that car or not. We know that driver's been drinking. We know it's dangerous, and we know we are putting our lives at risk. And even though we make a great decision by taking an Uber home the one time, that choice still may present itself at a later date, and that student is still going to have to make that good decision. So there are 3 different types of choices that both have short-term and long-term effects. So there's the obvious choice, the hidden choice, and the fabricated choices. So for instance, the obvious choice is, what do I do after high school? Do I go into college? Do I go to a trade school? Do I start a business? The hidden choice can be, hey, I call my buddy this nickname, and I didn't even realize that I had a choice because he's my buddy. He's my pal. I love, whatever. But when we find out that that other friend doesn't really like being called that, and that other student didn't even know. And then there's the fabricated choices. The fabricated choices of, oh gosh, if I don't go hang out with my friends and vape, then all of them are going to think I'm a loser and I'm going to have no friends tomorrow. Clearly, that's not the case, and that is a complete fabrication of peer pressure. But when we explain this to students, they can begin to see their choices a little bit more clearly, see and define what this choice actually is, begin to put them in categories, and begin to realize the importance of these choices, or lack thereof. Now, when it comes to the second part and the actual decision-making process, there is only 2 things that dictate whether a student is going to make a good decision or a bad decision or whatever decision. And these 2 things are their state and the meaning that they associate this decision with. And the state can be comprised of both physical, emotional, mental, whatever it is. If, we have students kind of with their, shoulders hunched and their face down, and depressed, and right? How likely do you think that student's going to actually make a good decision? If they're eating like garbage and they're not getting good sleep, their brain is not working as well as it can be. Again, how likely do you think these kids are going to make good decisions, or at least better decisions? Moving on to the second point is the meaning. If a student thinks and dictates a meaning that if I don't go through with this prank, then all of my friends are no longer going to talk to me. They're not going to think I have the guts. They're going to think I'm a chicken, whatever. And I'm just going to be a loser. No one's going to like me, and no one's ever going to like me, even through college. And I'm never going to get married and have kids. This is a really poor story that they're telling themselves, but it's the meaning that they've associated with this decision. If the meaning is, you know what? I know what's right. And if they don't want to be my friends, then they're not my friends in the first place anyway. Now that is a very different meaning. Part 3 is, of course, the patterns, and the patterns that arise from the effects of good decision-making or bad decision-making, as well as the patterns of good decision-making and or bad decision-making. And there are 3 types of patterns. Number 1 is the pattern itself. This is situations that seem to occur every once in a while, beginning to, show some type of, lack of a better word, pattern. The next level is a habit. This is something that is occurring as a result of that is so frequent, whether or not the student actually knows about it, but it is not yet as powerful enough that they need to seek professional help. And the third level, of course, is addiction. And this is where a student is so 100% dependent on something that they are no longer in control of their mind or body, and they are absolutely dependent on either their substance or that behavior. Now, a lot of this process is simply making these students realize how involved simply making a decision actually is and what actually occurs from that. But the bigger benefit of this framework is to have students begin to realize what side of the aisle they're on, whether they're completely out of control and they are developing either bad habits or addictions to whatever they're doing, and they have to reverse the process, and they actually have to make a new decision in the moment, because they know if they keep making that same decision, that poor decision, that these patterns, habits, and addictions are going to become so uncontrollable that it's going to have an extreme negative result in their life. So they have to master the decision, and that usually is the first one, of course, is the most difficult. But after that, they will still be presented with a choice, and they'll still be presented with understanding and figuring out whether or not this is an obvious choice or a complete fabricated choice or a hidden choice, whatever. And then, of course, before that, they'll try to put themselves in better situations where the choice becomes a lot easier or non-existent. Or a student is actually going the opposite direction and is seeing that they have a choice in the first place. This usually occurs when a decision is not as frequent in their life. So for instance, getting in a car when we know it's unsafe. That for the most part, hopefully it doesn't happen too often, but still they have to realize that, okay, they've heard their parents, they've heard their teachers, they've heard their ministers say so many times, don't get in cars when somebody's been drinking. Call me whenever you need. I don't care what time it is at night. We'll pick you up, take a cab, take an Uber, do whatever you need. And all of a sudden, all that subconscious, education is kind of spitting back out, and they're able to see, okay, this is a big choice I have right in front of me. I'm going to make the right decision. So this is really an awareness game and an awareness framework. So I want to hear from you. Please leave a comment below if you've ever had a student or a teen make a bad decision and how you coach them through making a better decision the next time. So if you like this video, please actually like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification to be notified next time I release a video. And if you want to really go more in depth to this CDP framework, I put together a 3-part video series with a lot of stories and more examples and some more intricate understanding of this process. And you can find that over at cdpframework.com.